Welcome to episode 67 of Uncaged Sports Talk. Welcome back. I'm your host, Luciano Sorenka. In this episode, we are just going to do a preview of week 15 of the NFL. I know I've been posting Luke's Locks on Facebook. I didn't do it this past week, but you haven't been missing anything. I will be the first to admit my Luke's Locks this year have not been hitting. Last year, we were hitting at a 60% clip. This year, and 60% is really good. But this year, nothing to write home about. Let's just say that. Nothing at all to write home about this year. So, without further ado, before we get into Luke's Locks and Luke's list for the week, the NFL power rankings, obviously, that you gotta drop the power rankings. I am gonna go through each and every game and give a little preview of each game. Give a quick thought about each game. In the full slate of 16 games in week 15. We got a really good one tonight. Niners fighting for their playoff lives against the Los Angeles Rams with Puka Nacua, who might be the hottest receiver. Him and Jamar Chase are the two hottest receivers. But Puka Nacua has been balling recently. So a big divisional matchup. Rams trying to keep pace to try to maybe win a division out there in the West. Who knows? It's going to take a lot to win a division probably. But they can crawl back into this thing. They're right in the thick of it. A win puts them in a really good spot. Now, a loss for the Niners ends their season. Just about. A win keeps them in the thick of the race. Going to be interesting to see how the Niners try to stop Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyren Williams. The Niners have just been banged up this year, and next year they got to pay Brock Purdy, so they're going to lose out on some people due to money. Going to be interesting to see how this game transpires. I personally think the Rams come out and win this game. I like the Rams over the Niners tonight on Thursday Night Football. Then you got the Commanders versus the Saints this week. I think this is a decent game considering it's in New Orleans. But then again, it's Jake Haener is starting for the New Orleans Saints. Jake Haener starting for the New Orleans Saints. That's not good. That's not good. I think Jaden Daniels comes out to the Commanders to get another good win and increase their chances of making the playoffs, moving to 9-5 on the year. I clicked the wrong button. It's okay. You got the Chiefs versus the Browns. For some reason, this line's only at -4. I did not put it on Luke's Locks. It's just odd. Only -4. I know the Chiefs have been struggling in every game, but they're 12-1. The Browns are 3-10. -4 is just odd. It's almost like Vegas wants you to pick the -4. So then you pick Cleveland. Or wants you to pick the Chiefs -4. So they're almost expecting Cleveland to cover this game, it feels like. There's another game where it's like that. But I think the Chiefs come out and win this game. They should be able to win this game. If they lose to the Browns, there's some problems in KC. Next, you got the Bengals versus the Titans. I think this is going to be a decent game. It's in Tennessee, which should keep it close. Sorry for that noise. I accidentally hit the desk I'm sitting at. But since it's in Tennessee, it should be close. Bengals don't got the best defense. I just don't see how the Titans stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in that offense and Chase Brown. I don't see how the Titans stop that. I think the Bengals come out and get the win against the Titans this week. And the Bengals keep their playoff hopes alive, moving to 6-8, which would be huge for Cincinnati if they can do that, get to 6-8, keeping the hopes alive. They're going to need to win out to probably make the playoffs, but there's a chance. They got life. One of the next games on the docket this week is the Dolphins and Texans. I actually like the Dolphins to win this game. Dolphins come in at 6-7, trying to keep pace in the NFC or in the AFC. I think the Dolphins can. Tua has been playing great ever since he came back from the concussion. The Texans have been struggling this year, despite adding Stephon Diggs this year, and Stephon Diggs is hurt, we all know. And despite Nico coming back, the Texans are still struggling on offense, just in general this year on defense as well. Give me the Dolphins on the road to come out with a win against the Houston Texans. Texans come into this game 8-5. Dolphins come in at 6-7. Give me the Dolphins to walk out at 7-7. You got the Ravens Giants. This spread is 16 points. A 16-point spread for a road team. -16 are the Ravens on the road. This feels like Vegas wants you to pick the Giants. Like Vegas is tempting you to pick the Giants. Vegas is expecting this game to be like 28-0. Almost. If they want you to pick the Giants that bad. Like Vegas is smart. They know what they're doing. If they want you to pick the Giants, it's a little sus. It's a little like you almost should pick the Ravens just because Vegas feels like they're trying to tempt you here. They're trying to trick you into picking the Giants, seeing that +16 for a home dog. I would still take the. I don't know who I would take. That's why I left it off of Luke's locks this week. But give me the Ravens to win this game. Like if they don't win this game, it's a joke. The Ravens should not win this game. It's a game you go out and win, so you can keep your division hopes alive. You got the Jets Jaguars. That's gonna be a piss poor battle. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets get it done, but the best they can finish is 7-10. Just a horrible year for the Jets. The Jets are just a clown show, even with Aaron Rodgers playing a full year, even after adding Devontae Adams. I think the Jets get the win against the Jaguars. Doug Peterson's on his last leg there in Jacksonville. Also, next week, I'll take a break real quick before I go through the rest of these. But next week, I will do 2 episodes. I can promise you I will do 2 episodes, and I will post way ahead of time. Because next week, I'm going to try to do a college episode, talk about the college football playoff. And in that episode, we'll talk about Billy B at UNC. Chapel Bill at Chapel Hill. We'll talk about that next week as well. And then on the regular scheduled episode, we will talk about the NFL week 16 next week as well. Now for the rest of the games on the slate, you got the Cowboys Panthers. Cowboys coming at 5-8 on the road, going to Carolina 3-10. This is the first time in 33 games that the Carolina Panthers are going to be favored. I would pick the Cowboys plus the 2.5 here in this game. I think the Cowboys win this game. Panthers have been playing better, but I can't see the Cowboys losing to the Panthers. I really can't see the Cowboys losing to the Panthers. Like, if they do, they've reached an all-time low. Next on the docket, you got the Buccaneers, 7-6 Buccaneers, going to the 8-5 Los Angeles Chargers. It really is a shame what happened to Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin getting hurt completely ended the season almost. Like, they could have made some noise in the playoffs this year, but Godwin getting hurt them bad. I think this is going to be a good game. No, Baker Mayfield's had a solid year for the most part. You got Mike Evans back, who's been back for the last few weeks. You're going to Los Angeles where there's no true home field advantage. You do have the travel aspect of it because you're traveling completely across country. The Chargers will come into this matchup at 8-5. I think the Chargers pull this off. They're -3. I think they pull it off. So Vegas thinks both teams are about even, which I think is a fair assessment. I think the Chargers win outright, though, in this game. They win and cover. You got the Colts going to Denver. The Colts are going to Denver at 6-7, and the Broncos are going to be coming into this matchup at 8-5. Broncos trying to almost secure a playoff spot. One win and they'll be at 9-5. That should help. That should put them right on the verge of getting into the playoffs. Courtland Sutton's been playing amazing football for the Broncos. I don't think that stops on this one. I think he continues to do so. The Broncos get a win against the Indianapolis Colts. You got the Cardinals Patriots. Not much to talk about in this game. The Patriots coming at 3-10, traveling to Arizona. The The Cardinals are 6-7. They're on a slide. They started, I believe, 4-2 this year. They're on a slide, though. They're 6-7 record's not great. I think the Cardinals come through though with this win. They're the better team. They're at home. They win this game fairly easily. The game of the week will take place in Detroit for the second straight week, potentially. It was on Thursday last week. You got the Buffalo Bills versus the Detroit Lions. This is a huge game for the Eagles. Eagles need the Bills to lose, or the Lions to lose about 2 more. We're going to be rooting for the Niners next week, which is crazy. And the Vikings, potentially. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be rooting for the Vikings. Who knows when it gets to that. Hopefully, we can still get to 1 seed at that point. But that will potentially hinge on this game tonight, or this game on Sunday, between the 10-3 Buffalo Bills traveling to the 12-1 Detroit Lions. Need the Bills to pull this one off and Josh Allen to widen that MVP gap. Also, only way Saquon gets that MVP is if he gets the rushing, like the all-time scrimmage yard record. If he gets that all-time scrimmage record, or even the rushing title, the all-time rushing title, he's got a shot to win MVP. He needs one of those 2 records to truly have a shot. If he gets a scrimmage one, like I think that's the feather in his cap. That's his argument for MVP, that he broke a record that hasn't been touched in years. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Back to the Bills-Lions game. I think the current MVP favorite. This is an interesting one. Lions should be able to cover this game. They should. Bills have been playing great. Their offense has been better without Stephon Diggs for some reason. Josh Allen's MVP favorite right now. I think the MVP favorite, though, drops the second game. I think the Detroit Lions come out with a win in this one in Detroit at Ford Field. If this was in Buffalo, I think Lions lose. Even though I think the Lions are built for playoff football with that run game with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Penei Sewell on the O-line. They're built for playoff football. They're built for, doesn't matter the weather. Like, who's going to want to tackle Jahmyr Gibbs and mainly David Montgomery in the cold? When David Montgomery is running right at you, who's tackling him? I know not many people are going to want to tackle him. They're built for the playoffs. Give me the Lions this week indoors at home against the Bills. If this was in Buffalo, I got the Bills. But since it's in Detroit, the Detroit Lions get the dub. Next, you got the Steelers versus the Eagles. There has been some trouble in paradise this week after what Brandon Graham said. Brandon Graham brought up A.J. Brown and Hurts maybe not being friends anymore, but then he walked back those comments. The only thing that makes me think there might be some validity to what Brandon Graham said this week is at this past game against the Panthers, there are multiple times Jalen could have passed to A.J. Brown. Like, he could have hit A.J. Brown on a slant for a touchdown. Me and my friend were, like, screaming like he's wide open. Like, A.J. Brown was wide open in front of Jalen's face. There's no way Jalen didn't see it. And he didn't throw A.J. the ball. I was confused by it. And I've seen a replay, too. He was wide open. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. Right in front of Jalen. And Jalen refused to throw it. So, it might be some validity to them not being on the same page. Because maybe Hurts was refusing to throw to A.J. Brown. They need to get that passing game going. Jalen's been struggling now. I think this is a week where they do it. I think they tell Saquon, take a step back. We need to see what Hurts can do this week. And I think Hurts comes out and has a really good game. Even if they run a decent amount still, I think Hurts comes out and has a really efficient game. Throws for 2 touchdowns. I think A.J. Brown gets a touchdown this week, maybe 100 yards. Devontae Smith gets over 50 yards. I think we have an efficient game from the offense this week. I think the Eagles win this game, and you'll see in Luke's locks one of my picks later. And no George Pickens for the Steelers is going to hurt. Like, who's going to get open on our secondary? Van Jefferson? Van Jefferson. Calvin Austin? Yeah, give me a break. On Sunday Night Football, you got the Packers versus the Seattle Seahawks. I think this is going to be a barn burner of a game. Packers Seahawks at the place where what was it, the Foul Mary? Is that what the nickname for it was? No, I think it was when Russell Wilson threw it and then you had the replacement ref shit go on. Then you had the replacement ref issue where it was like a Hail Mary caught by the defender and the receiver at the same time. Back in Seattle, this same matchup, Packers, Seahawks. I think the Packers win this game. Packers are the better team. I don't care that it's in Seattle. Seattle, it has been solid this year, but the Packers are a team that could go on and win the Super Bowl this year. They have the ability to do that. Give me the Packers to advance to 10-4 and the Seahawks to fall to 8-6. And then you got two Monday Night Football games, both coming on at the same time. You got a division matchup, which is going to be the more watched game. The Bears coming in at 4-9 against the Minnesota Vikings coming in at 11-2. This game's huge. This game is huge. Vikings can put themselves in a position to potentially keep float in this division. If they lose, you hit your division odds. But if you win this game, you keep yourself in this division race to go win the NFC North and potentially get the 1 seed in Minnesota. Make the playoffs have to go through Minnesota. We'll see, though. That's a few weeks out before we truly start talking about playoff scenarios. Give me the Vikings against the Bears. Vikings are just a better team, and they're at home. They're going to have the skull chant going in their favor. And then on Monday Night Football, you got the Falcons. Kirk Cousins, who's been struggling, but the schedule is finally easing up this week for the Falcons. Going again with Desmond Ridder, going against his former team in a revenge game. The Desmond Ridder revenge game Monday night? The Desmond Ridder revenge game on Monday Night Football in Vegas, by the way. I'll be there in 4 weeks. But the Desmond Ridder revenge game against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons come in at 6-7. Raiders at 2-11. Let's be real, though. I think Kirk Cousins and the Falcons get back on the winning track. I don't think we're getting a true revenge game here. I don't think Desmond Ridder shows up for balls out for this game, even though it's supposed to be a revenge game. I don't think he does all that. I actually was a big fan of Desmond Ridder when he was coming out too. I was a big fan of Desmond Ridder. I thought he was going to be really good when he came out, but he's been underwhelming ever since coming out of college from Cincinnati. Back to the game, though. I got the Falcons beating the Raiders. The Falcons moving to 7-7, and the Raiders falling to 2-12. Now, for my Luke's list and Luke's locks. Luke's list this week is brought to you by Sheridan Nissan. Go visit my friend Dan the Man Stanley at Sheridan Nissan, or he will hook you up with a new car. Just let them know Luke Sarenka and Uncaged Sports Talk sent you. Coming first off, trending down is the Green Bay Packers. I'll talk about them in a minute. They trend down 3 spots to number 8. And then the Falcons trend down 3 spots as well to number 19 in Luke's list. The Falcons they've had a hell schedule. That's as pleasant as I can put it. They've had a hell schedule defensively. Kirk Cousins has been struggling. And that's putting it nicely. Kirk Cousins has been struggling mightily. But it eases up this week against the Raiders, as I already mentioned. You got the Niners who play tonight on Thursday Night Football. They trend up 4 spots. The Niners had a really good win against the Bears this past week. I think the Niners lose this week and their season basically comes to an end. But it should be a very exciting matchup. I could see them winning. I could see Kyle Shanahan coming out putting on a good coaching performance. He's a good play caller. I've never denied that. I just don't think he's just not I don't know what it is with Kyle Shanahan. Maybe not a good leader because his team don't perform well in big games. He has issues in big games. Now for the top 10. Coming in at number 10, I got the Commanders. They moved on one spot off of a bye week. Commanders have had a solid year. They had a little rough patch, but every team faces adversity, especially with a rookie QB. Commanders stay in the top 10. The Rams are the one team that jumped the Commanders this past week. The Rams move up 3 spots after a big win against the Buffalo Bills and the MVP favorite. Puka Nacua has been on insane. Sorry for that noise. It was just an update about my fantasy basketball team. The Rams move up 3 spots. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp have been a great duo. The Packers moved down 3 spots. That's only because they lost to the Lions. They had a good game, but just fell short, partly because of the refs. But you can't blame the refs. Like you gotta control what you can control. Play your best, control what you can control. If you take care of other stuff, the refs won't matter. You got to play better. Can't let the refs affect the outcome of the game. The Ravens coming at number 7 in Luke's list this week. I think the Ravens off of a bye week, I think they come out and roll over the Giants. The Ravens are going to be pissed off after that last Eagles loss. They'd come out and they get ready for the Steelers game coming up in a few weeks. Ravens at number 7. Vikings coming at number 6 in Luke's list. Vikings just continue to play really good football. Sam Darnold having a really good year there in Minnesota. The Steelers coming at number 5 on Luke's list. The Steelers just same thing as the Vikings, just playing really good football, good defense. Russell Wilson surprising people. It's literally the same. It's the Vikings of the AFC this year. The Chiefs remain at number 4 as they have for the past 3 weeks. They've been winning. That's all they've been doing. As simple as that. They've been struggling in all those games. It hasn't been flashy at all, as it has in years past. They look vulnerable. But I think teams tend to tense up against them when it matters. Like when it gets tight in a game, I think teams tend to tense up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is why they're able to pull these games out at the end. I think they have the confidence in each other to pull it out. And I think teams are like, oh, God, here we go again. The Bills coming at number 3 on Luke's list. The Bills have just been playing really good football. They lost to a good Rams offense. Josh Allen had an MVP performance. The Bills stay at number 3 this week. The Eagles come in at number 2, and I actually got one thing I want to touch on with the Eagles. Everyone's been talking about their slow starts, but I haven't had anyone like ask or come up with a solution to why those rough starts could be happening. And I just want to throw out probably what's the most plausible reason why those slow starts have been happening in the first quarter. Why you have only 6 first quarter points this year. The reasoning? What happens during a game? Who's calling the plays during the game? The answer? Kellen Moore is probably calling the plays during the game. Most likely, I'd bet my house on it. That Kellen Moore is calling the plays during the game. But what do teams have usually? They have a first 15 play calls. I think that's why the Eagles are struggling in those quarters. During the week, I guarantee you, Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore are collaborating. And Nick Sirianni has his hands in the his blueprint on the offense for those first 15 plays. So, as a result, they struggle on those first 15 plays, leading to, hence, struggle not scoring in the first quarter because Nick Sirianni's involved in the game planning for the first 15 plays, which is for the first quarter usually. And then coming in at number 1 is the Detroit Lions. They're just playing really, really good ball. I think the Lions would beat any team they play right now. I think they're the favorite to go win the Super Bowl this year. Jared Goff is having a really good year. They got a great running game. I think that running game is built for playoff football. They got a good defense, great, tough head coach. Dan Campbell is a really good head coach. Just ballsy at times. We saw that a few times last year. But they're a good football team. I got to give them my props. I got to give them props. Now, for Luke's locks, as I mentioned earlier, we've been struggling mightily this year. We need a good week to turn this around. A good few weeks to turn it around as we close in on the end of the year. But without further ado, coming in at number 1 on Luke's locks this week, this week, I got the Rams +3 tonight. I think the Rams cover 3. I think it's going to be a close game. Going to be a really close game. Both teams fighting for a lot. But give me in a divisional matchup that 3-point spread. It could be a push, but I'm fine with a push here because it just cancels out the parlay. If you do it as a parlay, you don't lose money. The Dolphins, I like +3 against the Texans this week. I think the Dolphins win the game outright, as I mentioned earlier. So give me +3 for the Dolphins here. Dolphins, too, has been playing good ever since he came back. Give me the Lions -2.5 against the Bills. Since it's only 2.5, I like the Lions here. If it was 3.5, I'd go Bills. But 2.5, give me the Lions at home to win by about 3. I like the Eagles -5.5. I think the Eagles come out and quiet some doubters this week. I think they pass the ball all over. Not pass the ball all over, but I think they have a good, efficient day passing the ball this week. Eagles -5. And give me the Packers -2.5 against the Seattle Seahawks. I know it's on the road, but I think the Packers come out and win by at least 3, maybe 7 in this game. Packers -2.5. That'll do it for Luke's locks. Before I end the show this week, we got about 3 minutes. I'm going to try to hit the 30-minute mark as the cutoff. Pulling up my fantasy teams. I want to go over my fantasy teams as we enter the playoffs. I made the playoffs in all 3 of my main fantasy leagues. I did a guillotine league this year where the lowest score each week gets cut, but that ended because J.K. Dobbins got hurt. I needed 5 more points out of J.K. Dobbins, and he got hurt. So my guillotine season ended. But we'll move on. So this is my one league. I'm 9-5. I almost got a first-round bye if it wasn't for Jamar Chase. But I'm the 3 seed. This week starting, I don't really need to go over the benches, I guess. I'll go over the bench. I'll go over the notable guys. I got Joe Burrow this week starting. Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, who's been struggling, but I think he gets back on track this week. Cooper Kupp, who's been balling recently. Tucker Kraft, who's been a solid tight end. I might start Zach Ertz over him, but Tucker Kraft, who's been relevant. Courtland Sutton, he's been, ever since he had that Doug game where he had 0 points, Courtland Sutton's been balling. I got the Chiefs defense against the Browns this week. I love that. Will Ricard against the Bears. I love that. I got Zach Ertz, who I said could start over Tucker Kraft this week. I'm not sure yet. I got Jawan Jennings, who I could always sub in right now instead of Sutton or AJ, but I'm probably not. I'm probably sticking with the guys who got me here. I got Tony Pollard, who I could do the same with. I could put him in, but probably not. Probably sticking with the Suttons of the world. I don't like a running back on a team that's going to lose, especially in the fantasy playoffs. Especially on a game that's going to be high passing volume potentially. And then I got Brian Thomas, who plays the Jets this week, but he's probably not starting either in this league. And Cedric Tillman on the bench. I have an open bench on IR. I have an open bench spot waiting to try to pick up a defense. Not going to say what defense in case people I know that are watching. But there's a few defenses you can pick up for matchup purposes in week 16. So if you make it to the second round of the fantasy playoffs, you have a good defense. In my other league, I'm 7-7, just squeaked into the playoffs this past week. I got Lamar Jackson, Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Jawan Johnson, who I picked up after Taysom Hill went down on IR. Khalil Shakur. I had CMC in this league, so the team was supposed to be better, but just never panned out. I picked up the Packers defense because they got a really good Week 16 matchup against the Saints. I'll take that. I'll take them all day against the Saints in the playoffs. And I got the Vikings against the Chicago Bears this week. Why am I the hell? Hold up. It's something I did with my 2 leagues. All right, enough. I was confused by something. But yeah, I picked up the Vikings I've had the Vikings all year, but they play the Bears this week, which I really like. And then for my big money league, this team, if this team doesn't win, it has a bye week. If this team doesn't win me money, I will be shocked. I got Anthony Richardson starting at QB. He's the starter, I guess, for the foreseeable future for these last 2 weeks. I'll have Chase Brown, Joe Mixon, who's been outstanding, Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, who we've already talked about this week, Trey McBride, who I was able to trade for, AJ Brown. I'm going to trust him to keep it going. Vikings defense, Will Ricard, Kirk Cousins, who I have, who has an easy playoff schedule. I know he's been struggling, but he has an easy playoff schedule. Najee Harris. I picked up my 2 handcuffs in Khalil Herbert and Dameon Pierce. Because if Chase Brown and Mixon go down, I want to have one of those guys. Ramondre Stevenson, who's had a solid year. Garrett Wilson. I did the Packers defense thing again. And I got Cedric Tillman on IR yet again. I'm excited, though, for the fantasy playoffs to see how my teams do. I will be watching tonight Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Hopefully, they both have really good nights against the Niners. Screw the Niners. Only week I'll be rooting for you guys is week 17 to go out and beat. Might be next week, actually. No, it's week 17. To go and beat the Detroit Lions for the Philadelphia Eagles. Go help us out once. That'll do it, though, for episode 67 of Uncaged Sports Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on all of our platforms. It is greatly appreciated. I left the stage too early. See you next week.